Racism. We're going to talk about racism today and how it violently impacts Black women and Black girls. This is going to be a serious subject matter today on The Frequency. What's up, you guys, and welcome to The Frequency. I'm your host, Dee Barnes. Today, we're getting into a serious subject about racism and how it violently impacts Black women and Black girls. I had a sister reach out to me, and she told me her story. And when I heard it, just a little bit of it, I really wanted her to come on and share it. She is a mom, she's an entrepreneur, and a family activist, and so much more. And she endured something that she wants to share with the audience. So I'm going to bring on my guest, Danica Moore. Please join me. How are you, sister?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And thank you so much for, reaching out. And I couldn't wait to have you on to speak about this, because this is a serious matter. First, I want the audience to know, who you are. Tell me about, the work that you do first. Let's start there.
Sure. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate you finding worth in my story, because I think it's the story of most Black women, most Black girls and children, unfortunately. So that kind of actually speaks to who I am. I am a licensed social worker for 20 years. My area of expertise is trauma.
Huh.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah. This is going to be even better. We're going to talk about that too. Yes.
I feel like I just did this podcast episode. You can't outrun racism. Right. You can't outrun trauma. So that's what I do. I'm a trauma expert. I do individual and group therapy. And I also provide trainings. I'm also a mother. That's the core of who I am, the heart of who I am. And I'm a supporter. I'm an activist for folks who are looking to get free.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So, wow. It's interesting that you mentioned the trauma part. There's so much I want to talk to you about in regards to that on different aspects of life, but we're going to focus on this right now. Your story. God, please share that with me, because right now I'm the only one that knows right now what we're, about to discuss. So please walk us through what happened to you. Deep breath.
So I'm going to try and make it as succinct as possible, because it's just, you can't control. It's kind of like when you push a boulder down the hill, you can't control the devastation that it creates, right? You don't know the route that the boulder is going to take. And that's kind of my experience with racism working at a nonprofit. I worked there for almost a decade. I was invited to work there. I was invited to come and create a women's program from scratch, which I did. I partnered with a nurse practitioner, and objectively and subjectively, I did excellent work. They never had anything like the women's program that I created. And the evidence that I say that I use to kind of correlate with my believing that it was excellent work was that I was given funding for my program. I was asked to expand it to working with women, or to working with men. I was giving promotions. I was given salary increases on and off calendar. So there was just a lot of evidence to support that I was doing good work.
Right.
However, there's this thing called the nonprofit complex, right? Industrial complex. And if you work I'm sorry?
What does that mean?
So it's essentially, nonprofits usually have the face of doing good, right? They are the liberators of oppression, but inside it's full of violence, right? It's often racist, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic. But, we still give funds to these, different organizations. Right. And so that's essentially what happened to me. I worked at a nonprofit that did good work, but inside it was just a trauma magnet.
A toxic work environment?
Very toxic. A lot of nonprofits are poverty pimps. You know what I mean? Like they put up the marketing to get you to come. They get all of this funding to treat and serve Black people. But the way they actually treat and serve Black people is violent.
Let me back up for a minute. What did your women's program consist of?
So we provided kind of holistic care. We provided therapy, we provided coaching, we provided case management, we provided medical care. Oh, okay. So we were trying to have a wraparound effect for every woman that entered FIGHT, right? We wanted to serve them in the traditional fashion, but also based on whatever they needed. We were that flexible that we could just kind of find a way to meet their need most times.
Okay. Did they say something in response to the firing? Did they? So in response to the allegations?
The complaint has been open for 5 years. Wow. 5 years.
Before we connected.
Yes. Right? Oh yeah. I started my podcast on the 5th year anniversary of my firing.
What's the name of your podcast?
Yes.
What's the name of your podcast?
I'm Not Gonna Be Quiet.
I love it. I'm Not Gonna Be Quiet. I absolutely love it. So this inspired you after what was happening. This inspired you to do the podcast.
Absolutely. I was traumatized, even though that's what I did. That's my area. That's my niche. That's the work I do. I organized around this. I knew it was coming, right? I knew it was coming. And so I prepared for it. I saved money, right? In case I was fired. I was in therapy with my therapist already. I had support from my family and friends.
Right.
But even when it happened, I was still traumatized. I felt the symptoms of PTSD, right? I had anxiety, depression. I was so hypervigilant. Like I had distorted thinking, paranoia, because there were people at that agency that stabbed me in the back. Right. And so what that does when someone betrays you in your face, right? They're like, oh, you're doing great work. No, we're protecting you. We're standing in solidarity with you. But also they're co-signing me being harassed and terrorized, humiliated, dehumanized, and targeted. Right. I did my best to recover, but I knew I was still hiding out. I was not on social media at all. Right. I was still afraid of the boogeyman.
Right, right.
But eventually I realized in order to heal at the next level, I had to stop being afraid of being quiet. Like I had to stop being quiet and say my truth. Exactly. I had to let her see my face and let the chips fall where they may. So I created that podcast.
And that's why you created a podcast. And what do you discuss on there? Just everything that was happening to you or in general, things that happen to Black women?
So I largely focus on Black women and children, but I let people come on and they talk about something that they've been forced to be quiet about, right? Like covertly or overtly, you know what I mean? Like,
perfect.
I grew up in the church. We're not allowed to talk about being queer or lesbian or gay. So those are some things that, people come on and talk about whatever they've been asked to be quiet about, what they're no longer going to be quiet about, what being quiet caused them or cost them. Right, the harm, and then how they got free. Right, so the topics vary, but the questions are the same. Right, everybody's been silenced, and about something different.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
This bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Are you seeking legal action against them?
I am. So my case was an open case with PCHR, which is the equivalent of the EEOC. And it stayed there for 5 years. The investigator, she told me I was the last person to be interviewed. That was like 3 years ago.
Wow. So how do you move forward? I mean, and how do we as Black women move forward when we're in situations like that?
So, I think the fight is the fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
They deny racism. They affirm that I was Black. They affirm that I worked there. They affirm that, I didn't have any HR complaints, but they deny that their actions were racist. And so now we wait for the courts to decide. I wait for my day in court. And that's the thing about racism. They try to run the clock out.
Right.
To exhaust you,
Mm-hmm.
to tire you, to distract you. But I'm good. I'm focused. Let's go. We're going to do this. So I wait. And then I'm in therapy and I have people around me that mean me well.
Right.
And I move my body and that's my, I do the work to decolonize my mind and to feel my spirit. And that's how I stay afloat.
Mm-hmm. And as a therapist, what advice would you give other Black women in that situation? I mean, pretty much the same or?
No,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Not at all. I had privilege, right? I acknowledge that.
What do you mean? What do you mean by your privilege?
So I had privilege. I have 2 degrees. I have a license. I have network. I had a savings. I knew this was coming and I planned for it.
Right.
And I was, because, what I wanted to do was reshape that organization.
Right.
But what I realized 5 years later is that you can't. You've got to remove the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or else everything underneath it will be as dark and violent and homophobic and transphobic and racist. So I wouldn't recommend you take my route unless you're prepared for it.
Right. Because a lot of women are in positions like that where they can't.
You can't, because we all live check to check.
Right. So you can't.
I was on unemployment. I was getting assistance. I was struggling.
Right.
But I knew if I needed a life vest, people were there to help me. So, but I would only suggest it if you're invested in the place. Where I am now, if this happened to me today, no ma'am, no thank you. I'm not invested in dismantling racism at anybody's organization. No thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If this happens to you, I say leave when you can. Right. Create a utopia around you if you can. Make a plan, make an exit plan and employ it as soon as possible. When you work at these toxic and violent places and you think that, it's not happening to you, so you'll be all right. Trust me, you will not leave that place unscathed.
Exactly. Do you suggest that women go through the procedures of the steps? Because sometimes that can escalate things too. When you go ahead and report, when you discuss me, because I've had that happen too. This is why this conversation is so on point, because I'm sure there's other women out there that are experiencing the same things that you're saying they can completely relate to. Report it, or when you document, you definitely should document. That's one advice I would give everybody: document everything. But when you actually make the report, then you have to be prepared for the repercussions, because even though it's supposed to be confidential, somehow, some way, it's not, Yeah,
I agree. I do think, because there is a path forward, right? Where you can at least get some type of monetary damages. So absolutely document everything. Email,
Right.
email. Every call that I had, I followed up with email. Because, they tried to not put anything in black and white. They would stop by my office and I would say, thank you for stopping by my office. Here's what we discussed. So document everything. You have to create a support plan. You can't, if you know what's coming, create a support plan. Get in therapy if you can.
Go ahead. What are the things in the support plan?
If you can, get in therapy. If you're working and you have insurance, most programs have an EAP program, which is Employee Assistance Program. Access that, right? That's where you get free sessions. Sometimes the free sessions will roll over into another set of free sessions, depending if you change the topic. If you can afford therapy, if you can find low discount therapy, do that. Get with your friend group and let them know what's going on. Tell them exactly how you need their support. Right. Sometimes I just need people to call me and say, it's not you, sis. Yeah. You're not crazy. They're gaslighting you.
Because they're gaslighting you. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I literally tell my friends, this is what I need. Because, it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise. And they really try to act like they're not harming you when they are. So I would say document, make a plan, and get support. And stay in a place of support. Get a spiritual advisor, a life coach, whatever you can. But remind yourself, it's not you. And if you can't afford any of that, you can't see my space, but I have all kinds of just visual cues around me, reminding me the truth of who I am. Right. So just put up quotes that mean something to you, people that mean something to you.
Remind yourself of your worth while they're tearing down your worth. I feel you. I hear you loud and clear. I hear you loud and clear. Well, I want to get into next. We're going to take a quick break, but I want to talk about how the after effects of everything that happened, including with you having to move and your daughter, because this now will focus on, young Black girls. So we'll be back on The Frequency.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
A lot of stuff that we're not getting, you get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to
keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Back right here on The Frequency. I'm your host, Dee Barnes, and my guest, Danica Moore. We're talking about racism and how it affects Black women and Black girls. I'm just trying to figure out how do we move forward from that? I mean, how do you move forward from that? And were you able to pick up and go work somewhere else? You know?
So, I mean, well, the one great thing that came out of that was that I started my own business, right?
Right. What was the business?
I knew. So I was a program manager. I created this program, this women's program from scratch. There was no other women's program like that in the AIDS service arena. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to find that same job elsewhere. I was not going to be able to find that same salary elsewhere. So I think also people were afraid to work with me.
I can relate to that completely.
Right? You get it. So you hide out.
Right.
I mean, this is what trauma looks like. Like I was literally hiding out. People did not want to be seen with me. People did not want my name on their trainings.
Yeah.
So there was like fear, but I was like, I'll just do my own. And I created my business, right? And I do my own trainings and I have my own clients and nobody can affect that. Like that's what I can control. Mm-hmm. And so that was like the best part. But then there's just, when you start your own business, like I went from making like right at like six figures to like less than half.
Less than half, exactly. So you had the whole readjustment, your whole life. Like, because things that happen, I mean, of course, your work is your livelihood. But when things go wrong like that, it affects everything in your life,
100%. And there was just like this trickle down, like
all the way to your daughter.
All the way to my daughter, right? So at the time that I was fired, we had been interviewing for different private schools, schools specifically, because the principals aligned with, our family like ethics.
Right.
And so she went and she saw the school and we, did the admission stuff and she was offered admissions. But I had to reject it because I couldn't afford it.
You couldn't afford
Private
it.
School was expensive.
Exactly.
And so I had to reject that. And then we had to stay where we were for another year. And then at the next year,
how was her reaction to that?
So
disappointment, anger.
Yeah. I mean, she liked the place. We, friends were there. She wanted to go there. And so we had to settle on a different school.
Right.
And, that was, again, because of what started in 2018.
Right.
Right. That was the trickle down effect. And we went to this school and it felt good and it felt right until it didn't.
And this was a public school, correct?
This was a private school.
Oh, so you had rejected the first private school, but you went to another one.
Yeah, a year later, I was able to get some funding and get support. And I was I couldn't go to my first choice because they were like waitlisted her at that point because I had rejected them that first year. The thing about racism, you can't outrun it. You can't control it. You can't predict when it's going to happen to you or your seed. But that's how generational trauma happens specific to racism.
Right.
Knowing that it's a PWI, private white institution, I needed to create space where my daughter saw herself in the school, where we had community. So I started creating an affinity group.
Within the school? Within the school?
Within the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the group called?
It's called BAFA, which is Black African American Family Alliance.
Nice.
I come to this white space and I try to make it very Black. And the other thing similar is that I was invited there.
Right.
I actually had, I started the application process the year before, but then didn't finish it because I knew I couldn't afford it. But they called me and they were like, hey, we'd really like your daughter to come. I remember you from the last year. And I was like, can you give me funding? Can you give me some monies? And they were like, yes. So we went, felt good, didn't see enough Black teachers, started the affinity group. The head of school, he was like, yes, this is great. But then immediately it switched.
And it switched.
Similar to your experience, Dee, some of the Black parents were not happy that I was creating this affinity space for Black parents of Black students. And it was like crabs in a barrel, right? Like this one dad would come to our meetings and be disruptive. Some of the upper school kids would come and they would talk about their incidents of racism, like a white teacher making them read the N-word in their lit class, or a white teacher using the N-word and another white teacher denying that it happened when 8 kids heard it. And this parent, this dad, I can't even think of his name, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, he would come and he would refute that. He would say that didn't happen.
Oh, no.
He was horrible. He really wanted to protect this school and he needed to because, you know, there were some incidents with his child. So he needed to protect it. So I get it. But he would go back to administration and say that we were being divisive and racist. I don't know that Black people can be racist.
Exactly. And it seems like young Black girls are targeted more anywhere in any situation.
All the time. And that's what I know, right? When I chose these schools, this school had like 49% Black and people of color student body. Right. So I wasn't looking for a white space. I was looking for small classrooms, outdoor, activities, and, like something that has principles around it. Right. So, and that's what the Quaker school stood for, but not what they lived out. So from there, I was targeted. My daughter was targeted.
We'll be back on The Frequency.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover ours. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037- 0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Back right here on the frequency with my guest Danica Moore. I'm still reeling off of the fact what happened to your daughter, because I can share so many other stories with you about other mothers that I've heard experience things like that. But in particular, yours was so egregious because it was really to target you.
Yeah.
And they weaponized your daughter. And I'm so sorry you went through that. And I'm hoping your daughter, is she doing better? Is she okay?
Yeah, I think we're both recovering.
Good. I mean, that's all we can do. And I really want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, because the whole point of it is just like your podcast, never to be silenced. You know what I mean? And I want to commend you on that, for just standing up and being so courageous and taking your background with trauma, your background with activism, and utilizing that to help other women. And I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I know that this has to be what you wanted to come out of this interview in the first place, was to share your story and to have other women stand up and, not be silenced. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much. All right, y'all. It's another incredible episode of The Frequency. I want to thank my guest for her bravery. It was incredible. And I hope you've learned some tools to help yourself dealing with racism for Black women and Black girls. And I'll see you next time on The Frequency.